How I met my husband. I still remember the day I met my husband like it was yesterday. I was lying in my hospital bed, feeling weak and vulnerable, undergoing treatment for a prolonged illness. My spirits were low, and I had lost hope. That's when he walked into my room, a handsome and kind-looking doctor with a warm smile. He introduced himself as Dr. Last Name, and I couldn't help but notice the compassion in his eyes. As he began to examine me and explain my treatment plan, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. His gentle manner and reassuring words soothed my fears, and I began to feel a spark of hope. Over the next few days, Dr. Edric became a regular visitor to my room, checking on my progress and offering words of encouragement. We started talking about everything beyond my illness, our shared love of books, music, and travel. As I began to recover, our conversations grew longer and more meaningful. I discovered we shared similar values and a passion for life. Before I knew it, I was looking forward to his visits more than anything else in my day. One day, as I was preparing to leave the hospital, Dr. Edric came to my room with a small bouquet of flowers and asked if I'd like to grab a cup of coffee with him outside the hospital. I agreed, and that coffee date turned into a beautiful journey of love, laughter, and adventure. We got married a year later, surrounded by friends, family, and the hospital staff who had witnessed our love story unfold. After the marriage, we settled into a happy routine. My husband, Dr. Edric, continued to work at the hospital, while I pursued my passion for writing. We bought a cozy little house in a quiet neighborhood, surrounded by trees and a beautiful garden. We spent our free time exploring the city, trying new restaurants, and traveling to new places. We laughed together, supported each other's dreams, and built a life filled with love, joy, and adventure. As I regained my strength and health, I started writing again, and my husband was my biggest cheerleader. He encouraged me to publish my work, and soon I had a book in the works. Together, we faced challenges and celebrated triumphs. We built a life that was filled with purpose, meaning, and love. We became each other's rock, supporting and loving each other through thick and thin. Years passed, and our love continued to flourish. We had a beautiful home, a loving relationship, and successful careers. But amidst all the happiness, we faced one challenge. We hadn't been blessed with children yet. We tried everything, from medical treatments to prayers, but nothing seemed to work. We began to feel like our family was incomplete, like a puzzle with a missing piece. We faced many sleepless nights, tears, and moments of despair. But through it all, our love for each other kept us strong. We held on to hope, supported each other, and kept praying for a miracle. As we struggled with infertility, we faced not only our own private struggles but also the cruel whispers and judgments of others. People would mock us, asking when we would finally have a child, as if it was a personal failure. My in-laws, who had always been distant, grew colder and more disapproving, as if our childlessness was a reflection of our worth as a couple. Their rejection stung deeply, and I felt like I was losing my sense of self-worth. My husband, Dr. Edric, was my rock, reminding me that our love and relationship were what truly mattered. But the pain of their rejection lingered, making me feel like I wasn't good enough. Despite the hurt, we refused to let the opinions of others define us. We held on to each other, finding solace in our love and support for one another. We focused on our careers, our hobbies, and our relationship, building a life that was fulfilling and meaningful, even without children. As time passed, I brought up the idea of adoption again, hoping that my husband's perspective might have changed. But to my surprise, he still refused, holding on to the hope that one day we would have a biological child of our own. I understood his longing, but I couldn't help feeling a deep sadness. I felt like we were missing out on the opportunity to love and raise a child, to experience the joy of parenthood. I began to feel like I was living in limbo, stuck between the hope of conceiving and the reality of our situation. Our conversations about adoption became strained, and we found ourselves avoiding the topic altogether. I felt like we were drifting apart, our once unshakable bond beginning to fray. But even in the midst of our struggles, I knew that our love was strong enough to overcome any obstacle. I held on to the hope that one day, we would find a way to build our family together. Then a friend of mine invited me to a church program, a worship conference with a focus on faith and family. At first, I was hesitant, but something inside me stirred, and I felt a sense of curiosity and longing. I decided to attend, hoping to find some answers and solace. As I sat in the crowded auditorium, listening to the worship music and the testimonies of faith, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I began to cry, releasing all the pent-up emotions and fears I had been carrying. I felt like God was speaking directly to my heart, reminding me that He was still in control, even in the midst of uncertainty. The speaker shared a message about trust and surrender, and I felt like it was meant specifically for me. I realized that I had been trying to control everything, including my fertility, and that I needed to let go and trust in God's plan. I left the conference feeling renewed and refreshed, with a newfound sense of hope and faith. I knew that I still had a journey ahead of me, but I was no longer alone. I had God, and I had my husband, and together we could face anything. I kept going back to the church, week after week, hungrily listening to the Word of God. The teachings resonated deep within me, and I began to apply the principles to my life. I started to trust God more, surrendering my desires and fears to Him. As I drew closer to God, I felt a sense of peace and joy that I had never experienced before. My relationship with my husband began to flourish again, and we started to pray together, seeking God's guidance and wisdom. One day, as we were praying, my husband suddenly stopped and looked at me with tears in his eyes. "You know what?" he said. "I think God is telling me to surrender our desire for a biological child to Him. I think we're meant to adopt." I was taken aback, but I knew exactly what he meant. I had been feeling the same nudging in my spirit. We held each other, crying tears of joy and surrender, knowing that God was leading us on a journey of adoption. And that's when our miracle began to unfold. As we delved deeper into the scriptures, our faith grew stronger, and our love for each other and for God became more profound. We made it a habit to study the Bible together, seeking guidance and wisdom for our lives. And in our prayers, we always remembered to lift up our in-laws, asking God to soften their hearts and bless them with an understanding and loving spirit. One day, as we were studying the book of Ruth, I felt a strong urge to reach out to my in-laws and share the word of God with them. I was nervous, but my husband encouraged me to follow the prompting. I wrote them a letter, sharing our journey of faith and the love of God that had transformed our lives. To our surprise, they responded, and for the first time, they expressed a genuine interest in our lives and our faith. We began to have meaningful conversations, and they started to attend church with us. The wall that had once divided us began to crumble, replaced by a bridge of love, understanding, and mutual respect. Our adoption journey was still ongoing, but we knew that God was working everything out for our good. And as we waited, we continued to trust in His perfect plan, knowing that our family was being built on a foundation of love, faith, and prayer. One day, as I lay in bed, I had a vivid vision in the night. I saw myself holding two beautiful babies, a boy and a girl, cradling them in my arms and caring for them with so much love. The vision was so real, I could feel their tiny hands and feet, their soft breath on my skin, and their bright eyes looking up at me. I woke up with a start, my heart racing with excitement. I knew that this vision was a message from God, a confirmation of our adoption journey. I rushed to tell my husband, and we both felt a surge of hope and joy. We knew that our babies were on their way, and we couldn't wait to meet them. One faithful morning, I woke up feeling unwell, with a nagging sense of fatigue and nausea. At first, I brushed it off as a minor bug, but as the day went on, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. My husband encouraged me to go to the hospital for a checkup, and I reluctantly agreed. As I lay on the examination table, I couldn't help but think about our adoption journey and how we had given up on the idea of having biological children. But then the doctor walked in with a smile on his face and said, "Congratulations, you are 5 weeks pregnant." I was stunned. 5 weeks. How could this be? We had tried for so long, and now, when we least expected it, God had surprised us with a miracle. Tears of joy streaming down my face, I turned to my husband and saw the same shock and amazement reflected in his eyes. We left the hospital that day with a sense of wonder and gratitude, knowing that our lives were about to change in ways we never thought possible. And as we looked at each other, we knew that our love, faith, and trust in God had brought us to this moment. My pregnancy journey was a whirlwind of emotions, from excitement and joy to anxiety and fear. But through it all, my husband and I held on to each other and to God, trusting that He was guiding us every step of the way. As my belly grew, so did our anticipation. We prepared the nursery, attended parenting classes, and read up on everything we needed to know about raising a child.